In the 1950s, remember we said President Eisenhower wanted to change the way that the United States operated. One of the things he did was spend less money on traditional military weapons and more money on nuclear weapons. It's part of the New Look program. But something else that Eisenhower imagined or cooked up was a use of a very new government agency, the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency. This is the country's spy network. They realized the value of having one of these after World War II, and the CIA was going to find ways to intervene. In many instances, the CIA has helped create a coup in various countries to prevent certain governments from coming to power or staying in power. And in the 1950s, you're going to see two key countries that the United States is going to intervene in. The first one is in 1953 in Iran. There's a document we're reading in class that will give you information about this, but the CIA basically helps a coup occur in Iran because one political leader was becoming too friendly with the communists and the Soviet Union, and the United States did not want to see that individual stay in power. Again, there's a document in your files and folders that will go over this more in depth. We'll also go over it in class too. And the amazing part about the coup using the CIA is that nobody knows about it. The United States puts little money in the way. There's no military investment. It's a small amount of money in the grand scheme of things. And so the United States is able to subvert a government from turning to communism by using its spy network. We also did the same thing in Guatemala. You see right here, Guatemala in 1954. When you use a tactic and it works effectively, you're going to use it again. And you see Guatemala right to the south and east of Mexico. And Guatemala doesn't have a lot. In fact, its leading export is tropical fruit. And the United States had gone in years past and bought up significant amounts of land in Guatemala and harvested the exotic fruit there, particularly bananas. And what happens is the Guatemalan government in 1954 becomes under the control or comes under the control of a communist leader. This is another document we're going to look at in class, but under the leadership of this communist government, they seize the land from American fruit companies, the United Fruit Company, and they are going to distribute it to the peasant farmers who had been working there. Obviously, the United Fruit Company is not going to be too pleased about this, and the United States is going to get involved. The CIA will sponsor a coup and remove a democratically elected president merely because he happens to be a communist. And the reality is they weren't really concerned about him being a communist until he took land that the United States had bought up. And at the same time, American companies have been exploiting the workers in Guatemala. But once again, it's a successful coup, and nobody at the time knows about it. Now, these things do spill out later on, obviously, but it's a real problem. It's going to be a bigger problem. We'll explain why. 1954, you also get an end to what we call the First Indochina War. Remember how we said that France had been kicked out of its former colony by Ho Chi Minh and his Viet Minh. And after the First Indochina War ends, you see this as the result. The country that we know, or the territory that we know as Indochina, is going to be broken up. Laos and Cambodia become independent nations, and Vietnam is broken up into a North and South Vietnam. The North will be a communist state run by Ho Chi Minh, and South Vietnam will be a democratic government, and the United States will support it. And the plan was to reunite Vietnam in 2 years under free and fair elections. And that was the way that this was supposed to play out. And of course, it's not going to play out like that. Fun fact, the French do leave, but the United States is concerned about the threat of communism spreading, so they call off the elections in 1956. Ugh. All right, and that's going to turn into a whole different mess later on. Now, 1956 is an interesting year because you also have crisis over in the Soviet satellite countries. In Poland, communism was not working very well in Poland at all. In fact, communism was not working very well at all. You see angry workers take to the streets and protest. This sign they have right here is that we want bread. The idea is these people are not prospering under the communist system and they're angry. The Soviet government, being the ones really in charge, tell the Polish communist government, you need to get this under control because we're talking tens of thousands of protesting workers taking the streets, and it's embarrassing not only for the Polish government, but for the Soviet Union. You're saying that the people there realize communism doesn't work. So the Soviet government relays to Poland, you need to get this under control. To get it under control, the Polish government rolls tanks into the streets. They bring in military operations and they crush a rebellion. They don't kill that many people in the grand scheme of things. There's only a few hundred who are killed or wounded, but it's enough to make an example out of people. The people in Poland got brave now that Joseph Stalin was dead and that Nikita Khrushchev was now in charge. They thought that maybe they can get away with this. You see a similar action in 1956 in Hungary, where Hungary decides if Poland can revolt, we can do the same thing because we are not getting treated the way that we deserve to be treated. Not only that, but Hungary tries to pull out of the Warsaw Pact. Now, the rest of the world is looking at this crisis, and it's a bit of an issue. Before the United Nations can really act in either one of them, communists are going to put down these revolts. Here in Hungary, you can see that these workers are coming out in an organized protest, but the Soviet Union doesn't even try to rely on the Hungarians for this. They come out and massively crush this rebellion. They make it clear that uprisings will not be tolerated and will be met with stern measures. So the 1950s are pretty crazy in the sense that we're concerned about communism spreading, and at the same time, the Soviet Union is desperately trying to hold on to what they have.